Hello, my name is McKenna Coldiron, and I chose to do this presentation on schizophrenia disorder. And throughout this presentation, I'm just going to be explaining the symptoms, the treatments, and some underlying myths or facts that people may not have known about it. So, what is schizophrenia? Schizophrenia, according to the Mayo Clinic, is a serious mental disorder in which people interpret reality abnormally. Schizophrenia may result in some combination of hallucinations, delusions, and extremely disordered thinking and behavior that impairs daily functioning and can be disabling. Schizophrenia also involves a range of problems with thinking, cognition, behavior, and emotions. Signs and symptoms may vary, but usually, again, it involves delusions, hallucinations, or disorganized speech, and reflect an impaired ability to function. Schizophrenia causes psychosis and is associated with considerable disability and may affect all areas of life, including personal, family, social, educational, and occupational functioning. Some interesting facts or information about schizophrenia is 1% of the population, around 2.2 million Americans, will develop schizophrenia. There are 5 subtypes of schizophrenia: paranoid schizophrenia, disorganized schizophrenia, catatonic schizophrenia, undifferentiated schizophrenia, and residual schizophrenia. Schizophrenia typically appears when a person is in his or her teens to early 20s. Most people prefer to be left alone and are not violent. Another interesting fact that I found was the name schizophrenia comes from the Greek words schein, to split, and phren, mind. Swiss psychiatrist Paul Eugen Bleuler came up with the word in 1910 for the dissociation of various mental functions he saw in his patients. Something else I found when looking for facts about schizophrenia was this graphic about myths about schizophrenia, which is an interesting contrast to the facts about it. I'm not going to go into detail about each of the myths, but I will read the titles at least. Number 1 is people with schizophrenia have split personalities. 2, people with schizophrenia are violent and dangerous. 3, people with schizophrenia have the same physical health as everyone else. 4, people with schizophrenia cannot live a normal life. 5, people with schizophrenia cannot recover. And number 6, schizophrenia is purely genetic. I found this very interesting when looking at it compared to the facts, because this does seem to be a very large understanding of what schizophrenia is. So, what are some known causes for schizophrenia? Problems with certain naturally occurring brain chemicals, including neurotransmitters called dopamine and glutamate, may contribute to schizophrenia. Neuroimaging studies show differences in the brain structure and central nervous system of people with schizophrenia. While researchers aren't certain about the significance of these changes, they indicate that schizophrenia is a brain disease. Research has not identified one single cause of schizophrenia. It is thought that an interaction between genes and a range of environmental factors may cause schizophrenia. Psychosocial factors may also affect the onset and course of schizophrenia. Heavy use of cannabis is associated with an elevated risk of the disorder. Substance abuse is a significant cause for schizophrenia and can be seen in many of the drug-using communities. Another fact I found interesting, which you can see on the graphic on the side, is about malnutrition in the second and third trimester of pregnancy and how it increases the chance of the child developing it later in life. This image from Verywell that I found online gives more insight on how substance abuse can greatly impact your chances of developing schizophrenia. Certain drugs can cause psychotic episodes, either by ingestion or when going through withdrawal. It also points out that simply stopping the drug will not stop the symptoms someone may be experiencing, which can be very concerning about drug use. I briefly discussed this in some of the previous slides, but what are the symptoms of schizophrenia? There's delusions, hallucinations, disorganized thinking or speech, extremely disorganized or abnormal motor behavior, and negative symptoms. Each of these will be further explained in the following slides. So, what are delusions? These are false beliefs that are not based in reality. For example, you think that you're being harmed or harassed, certain gestures or comments are directed at you, you have exceptional ability or fame, another person is in love with you, or a major catastrophe is about to occur. Delusions occur in most people with schizophrenia. Another symptom is hallucinations. These usually involve seeing or hearing things that do not exist, yet for the person with schizophrenia, they have the full force and impact of a normal experience. Hallucinations can be in any of the senses, but hearing voices is the most common hallucination. There's also disorganized thinking or speech. Disorganized thinking is inferred from disorganized speech. Effective communication can be impaired, and answers to questions may be partially or completely unrelated. Rarely, speech may include putting together meaningless words that cannot be understood, sometimes known as word salad. Extremely disorganized or abnormal motor behavior. This may show in a number of ways, from childlike silliness to unpredictable agitation. Behavior isn't focused on a goal, so it is hard to do tasks. Behavior can include resistance to instruction, inappropriate or bizarre posture, a complete lack of response, or useless and excessive movement. The last symptom is negative symptoms. This refers to reduced or lack of ability to function normally. For example, the person may neglect personal hygiene or appear to lack emotion, does not make eye contact, doesn't change facial expressions, or speaks in a very monotone. Also, the person may lose interest in everyday activities, socially withdraw, or lack the ability to experience pleasure. There's a graphic on the right explaining the positive and negative symptoms, which can be seen differently in people with schizophrenic disorder. So, how is schizophrenia treated? Schizophrenia requires lifelong treatment, even when symptoms have subsided. Treatment with medications and psychosocial therapy can help manage the condition. In some cases, hospitalization may be needed. Unfortunately, there is no known cure, but if treatments are consistently applied, then the symptoms can go dormant after a period of time. So, why use therapy? Because schizoaffective disorder is lifelong, long-term treatment is necessary. People who feel better for a while may stop taking their medication, but this can cause symptoms to come back. Consistent lifelong treatment is necessary for those suffering with schizophrenia. Different forms of therapy, along with psychotherapies such as art therapy or music therapy, are highly encouraged as well. Medications. Along with an antipsychotic medication that treats symptoms like delusions and hallucinations, people who have the bipolar type of schizophrenia may be prescribed lithium or another mood stabilizer. People who have the depressive type are often prescribed an antidepressant. This all depends on getting the correct diagnosis, which is vital to finding the correct treatment for each individual case. Of the famous schizophrenia cases I found, Vincent van Gogh was the number one researched. One of the most famous, influential figures in Western art history was believed to be heavily influenced by their schizophrenic condition. Though there are no strong certainties behind which mental illness he had, schizophrenia is a commonly accepted theory put together through written correspondence between Vincent van Gogh and Theo van Gogh. Van Gogh suffered from chronic depression and would not have gotten by without the financial and emotional support of his brother Theo. Vincent often suffered from episodes of sudden terror and lapses in consciousness, as well as there being strong evidence of his use of absinthe and cognac, playing a major role in his illness. Quarrelsome fought with fellow artists, cut his ears off, and gifted it to his lover, and would eventually commit suicide over the burden he felt placed on his brother's shoulders. Another interesting famous case I found was of Peter Green. British blues, rock singer and songwriter, and co-founder of Fleetwood Mac, Peter Green, battled for years with schizophrenia brought on by his drug use. After years of abusing acid and hallucinogenic drugs, Green would be diagnosed with schizophrenia, followed by the halting of his music, giving away his guitars and most of his money, and rapidly declining in mental health. He was in and out of clinics and mental hospitals, going through various rounds of electroconvulsive therapy. Though he would still claim to hear voices in his head, he's surrounded by loving friends and lives an eccentric but safe lifestyle, drug-free. And to complete my presentation, this is my reference page. I hope that I taught someone something about this very unique disorder.